The world seemed to pause as night draped the quiet country road in a blanket of shadows. Emergency Dr. Ethan Hayes leaned back in his car seat, muscles aching from a brutal 14-hour shift, the drone of the engine his only companion. All he craved was a steaming shower and a soft bed. Then up ahead, headlights lit a dark silhouette on the asphalt. Ethan's heart lurched. He slammed on the brakes and skidded to a stop. Wet in front of his bumper stood a German Shepherd K9, motionless, its keen eyes glowing in the light. There was no growl, no wag of the tail, only an undeniable urgency in that silent stare that sent chills crawling up Ethan's spine. What could be so wrong that a trained police dog would leap into the road like this? Ethan held his breath. His instinct screamed that this was no random stray. The dog's gaze flicked toward the forest edging the road, then back at him, as if begging him to follow. Ethan tightened his fingers on the steering wheel, weighing his options. He could ignore it, drive away, and pretend he never saw those pleading eyes. The something deeper, a doctor's impulse to help, propelled him out of the car. The door swung open and he stepped onto the cold pavement. In that moment, the dog bolted into the trees, pausing now and then to make sure Ethan trailed behind. A sense of dread settled in Ethan's chest as he plunged into the forest after the K9. The forest was unnaturally silent. No rustling leaves, no insects buzzing, just a suffocating stillness that made Ethan's skin crawl. Every breath felt too cold, too heavy. Suddenly, his foot sank into something soft and damp. He looked down, a child's blue jacket, muddied and streaked with dried blood. His heart pounded so fiercely he wondered if the boy lay nearby. The dog, Rex, as Ethan would soon learn, halted and stared at the jacket, eyes blazing with urgency. Then Rex turned, chest heaving, and darted deeper into the trees. Ethan sprinted after him, panic fueling his steps. Ahead, moonlight spilled into a small clearing. There, curled beneath a thicket of dry leaves, lay a tiny, motionless figure. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He fumbled for his flashlight, its beam settling on the child, a boy no more than 2, shivering in the icy dirt. His body was frail, lips pale, and breaths came in dangerous whispers. Ethan dropped to his knees, pressing 2 fingers to the boy's wrist. The pulse was faint, fluttering like a dying bird's. The boy was dehydrated, on the brink of collapse. A soft whimper drew Ethan's gaze to Rex, who knelt beside the child and gently placed a paw on his back, muzzle trembling in a silent plea. This dog wasn't hunting, he was begging for salvation. Emotion squeezed Ethan's throat. He slipped off his jacket and wrapped it around the child's small frame, cocooning him in warmth. Carefully, he scooped the boy into his arms. His mind raced. The earth here had been freshly dug, a shallow grave scarred into the ground. It wasn't an accident. Someone meant for this child never to see dawn. Fury ignited in Ethan's chest. He bolted back through the trees, Rex sprinting at his side, never once glancing back. Together, they burst onto the road and leapt into the car. Ethan floored the gas pedal, the car's tyres screaming as they raced toward the hospital, time slipping away with every heartbeat. Inside the emergency department, alarms blared and staff swarmed. Ethan rushed forward, cradling the boy. Nurses whisked him away on a stretcher, while doctors fought to stabilise him. Rex pressed close by the door, eyes never leaving the gurney. Ethan tried to follow, but a hand gently blocked his path. "He can stay," Ethan said, voice tight. Rex whined softly and sat, body tense, as though guarding the child from the entire world. Minutes later, police officers arrived. One scanned Rex's microchip and froze. He turned to Ethan, eyes wide. This K9. He belonged to Sergeant Daniel Miller. The dog disappeared 6 months ago after Miller was killed in a raid. Ethan's breath caught. Miller's only son, Nathan, had vanished from his grandparents' porch just last night. The realization struck like a lightning bolt. Rex hadn't just found a lost child. He'd come back to save Nathan. But there was no time to dwell. A nurse burst from the ER, face ashen. "A white van just pulled up outside," she whispered. It left the moment the police showed. Security footage revealed muddy, obscured plates, and faintly, an emblem on the door. An officer pointed to the screen. This van's been linked to several missing child cases, and was last seen near an abandoned warehouse on the town's edge. Ethan's blood ran cold. Nathan's fate was tied to a ring Miller had been investigating before his death. Back in the police briefing room, maps were unfurled. The tip line had received an anonymous call. Another shipment was leaving tonight. No warrant could come fast enough. If they hesitated, another child might vanish forever. Ethan looked at Rex, whose gaze was steady, resolute. Plan made, a tactical unit and Rex set out under the cloak of darkness toward the warehouse. Outside the warehouse, the air was thick with the stench of oil and decay. Rex led the way, nose to the ground, muscles coiled like springs. Ethan and the officers fanned out, weapons at the ready. At Rex's signal, they breached the side entrance. Flashlights carved narrow beams across cracked concrete walls and rust-stained shelves. A shout echoed. "Police!" The suspects scrambled. Rex moved with inhuman speed. He dodged a metal rack, launched at an arm brandishing a weapon, and clamped his jaws down, disarming the criminal before a shot could echo. His every move was precise, unstoppable. Deeper inside, Ethan spotted two men dragging a terrified child toward the waiting van. "Stop!" an officer roared. One suspect reached for a gun, but Rex was faster. He launched like a bullet, knocking the man unconscious before the trigger could click. The second culprit bolted, but officers tackled him to the ground, cuffs clicking shut. The child was freed, screaming for his mother, but too shaken to speak. As they secured the last suspect, Rex stood, panting, amid the chaos, eyes still blazing with battle fervor. Then Rex stiffened. Ethan followed his gaze to a dark corner. A figure emerged, calm, composed, dressed in an expensive suit. Marcus Hayes, the crime lord believed to be the ring's mastermind, stepped forward with a smug smile. The lead officer raised his pistol. "Marcus Hayes, you're under arrest for human trafficking and conspiracy to commit murder." Hayes laughed, taunting them for lacking a warrant. But Rex didn't care about legalities. Months of pain and loss boiled in his chest. In a heartbeat, Rex lunged. An officer slammed his rifle butt into Hayes' knee, dropping him to the floor. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Hayes' arrogance drained, replaced by real fear. He realized that power, wealth, and influence meant nothing against Rex's unbreakable determination. Dawn's pale light filtered through the warehouse windows as the last suspects were loaded into vans. Ethan approached Rex, stroking his thick fur. "You did it, buddy," he whispered. Rex's heavy panting slowed, but his gaze was still alert. They had avenged Daniel Miller and rescued his son Nathan. But for Rex, the journey wasn't over until Nathan was safe forever. Later, on the hospital steps, the sun rose in brilliant gold. Ethan sat quietly beside Rex, who lay close by. The doors swung open, and there stood Nathan, small hand reaching out. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw his faithful protector. Hesitantly, Nathan stepped forward and pressed his palm to Rex's muzzle. In that simple touch, Rex understood that he wasn't just a canine, a warrior, or a survivor. He was home. And from that moment on, they would watch over each other, bound by love, loyalty, and the promise of a new dawn.